All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Bendito Show. This is season 2, episode 9, and it is the last show of the
That's
year.
right.
Abraham, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man. What's up, everybody out there watching us? It's Christmas. It's the Christmas episode, but we're gonna talk something else
Mm.
that's not Christmas. We're gonna talk about COVID today. I like that sweater, man. What did I say? Tic tac,
Tic tac toe, man. You can actually
tic
play tic
tac.
tac toe right here,
You
you
can
know?
play on there.
Yeah, it has all showed off a bit here. Love it, man. Hey, we didn't coordinate. We didn't
No,
say
we
dress up or
didn't.
anything, but
No,
I'm
we
telling
didn't.
you,
But it just
man,
happened.
the Christmas spirit is
Yeah, I got my
real
Christmas
up in
swag on.
here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I
Yes,
got it. I got the Feliz
yes.
Navidad. You can't really see the Navidad because my camera's kind of high, but
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Feliz Navidad is there. So
Hey, man, like you said, we got a very special show this evening. I'm excited, a little bit sad because it's the last show of the year.
that's
And,
right. Yeah.
before we tackle, what's about to come, I just want to say to everybody who's been watching, thank you so much. Honestly, I feel that every episode has been edifying to my life. It's been really fun. It's been super edifying. Just to have these conversations, man. Abraham, it's
It
been a
has. I mean,
blast.
and you know what? I've gotten a lot of feedback from a lot of people that have been blessed by the show. People, like the answers. Some people disagree, of course,
Yes,
and I've been told that people disagree. But
I
it's
love that.
good. Like
Yes.
any kind of popularity is good popularity. But I hope that people are being edified. Like, I mean, we're not
Yeah,
striving to be
yeah,
popular. If we were, the content of the show would be different.
absolutely,
What we're
yeah,
striving for is to edify you in a different way. That's not church.
yeah.
Maybe one day we'll probably have a church service up in here. You all know that I like that old school religion.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
for
yeah.
now,
Well, we,
this
we
is it.
know we know that about you, bro. But
Yeah.
if you're new to the show, guys, this is just an environment, a community where we just like to have a chat. We're Christian people. We're proud about it. We love to
That's
speak
right.
about Jesus. We our number one thing about all of this is just to have a space where we can chat about things that are going on in the world. And man, this past week has been a tough one, especially if you live in places where the words restrictions, lockdowns are
Lockdown.
coming back to haunt us. And so this is what this show this evening is all about. Abraham and I were mentioning in the past 24 hours that we wanted to bring
That's
some
right.
people in to share their opinions, and we got them here. So we got a few individuals whom I'm excited to introduce here. But hey, before you do so, guys, leave us some comments. We want to make sure that you guys are watching, that you guys are you guys are tuning in, and we're definitely gonna have an eye on there to see if maybe you guys want to rebuttal what any of these two beautiful people have to say. So, hello, hello. Our sister Maristed, our brother Marcelo. What's up, guys? I'll start with Maristed. How are you doing today?
I'm well, tired, but I'm good.
Yes,
I'm good. I can't
yes.
complain.
Awesome. Super, super excited to have you on the show. Marcelo, bro, how you doing?
I'm doing great, bro. Thank you for asking. Feel very blessed and privileged to be here sharing with you guys today.
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
welcome to the Bendito show.
Yes, I
Things are different on this side, but we'll enjoy it.
I think this is as happy as we're gonna have the conversation. I think it's about to get quite dark and mellow, baby. But no, listen, folks. You know what? This was a topic that we brought up last week. COVID cases rising again. Now what? And
That's
Abraham
right.
and I, we were chatting, and um, back then there was still not that big of a concern with lockdowns. I'm literally talking about literally 1 week ago, because things rapidly took pace like at the middle of last week and the last week where cases just started doubling, and the word restrictions came back. And if you live in Canada, if you
That's
live
right.
specifically in the province of
Ontario
Ontario, we're now back to 50% in retail, restaurants,
restaurants, the buffets are
and
closed.
yes, and not only is two vaccines not enough, but now we have the
Booster,
infamous booster shot. And
booster
so,
shot.
folks, I think the first question that I want to ask tonight, and I'll be throwing in and out a timer, is how have you felt, and like right now, throughout the past week, do you feel that anything has changed from the beginning of the pandemic to now? I'll start off with Abraham, and then I'll kick it off to Marcelo, Maricel, and then I'll wrap it up.
It is. Yeah. I mean, my perception has changed a bit because, and I'll tell you why. The science table said that the cases were going to go from 5,000 to 10,000, and right after they said that, the cases started doubling. It's like everything they say comes to happen. And the question in my head is, are they controlling the cases? That's why I feel different. You know what? In the beginning, I used to clean groceries and all this nonsense that people do, but now it's like, I because the illness is a real thing, whether it's a killer or not, well, that's to be determined. But the illness is a real thing, right? And people die from it. Well, people who have conditions. But however, I just take my vitamin D's, my vitamin C's. I drink my coronavirus defense serum, and that's it. That's Nothing's changed. Everything's
Mar-
the same.
Marcelo, man, how do you feel since March 2020 up until now? Have things changed for you? Talk to us.
Yeah, on a personal level, I think that, like a lot of people, I think it's been a roller coaster ride. And I think at first there was fear. I think at first we were worried, just the unknown. You're seeing people in China drop dead. You're seeing people in the New York hospitals, like just the overflow.
Yeah,
Just when
Italy was a big one in the media.
yeah, and
Italy was
especially when it
huge.
came to the West here, when it came to North America, I think the fear was real. It was real at the time. I think as time progresses, um, just looking around and being observant of how things are going on a day-to-day life, I think that we've adjusted to it, and now I think we are less scared. And I personally think that I have a lot of questions arise as time progresses, right?
Yeah. Yeah, might have said, what do you have to say in terms of kind of your experience, your feelings, your initial feelings, to how you're feeling right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Marcelo. At the beginning, well, just like Abraham said, I was afraid. We were disinfecting everything. Nothing came through my door that was not disinfected. I mean, when my
Mm.
brothers came to visit and I had Lysol, I just sprayed him down with Lysol. I'm like,
Yeah,
you can't walk in here without, because
yeah,
Diego would not have allowed him into the house. And then I ended up spending some time at home because the school is closed. So then I just started to do a little bit of, like Marcelo said, just being more aware of what was going on and just reading some stuff and just looking at the numbers and what they were saying. And my eyes started to open to what I believe is a different reality than what we're being presented,
mm,
which is where I stand today.
yeah,
And that's, yeah. Yes,
yeah.
is COVID real? 100%. Do people get sick? For sure. Is it the same for everybody? It is not,
Got it. Got it.
you know.
And really, this is it's tough to put where do we start with this topic, and that's why I kind of just wanted us to get just a general sense of how we're feeling right now versus how we were feeling at the beginning. That was the question. Feel free to also leave a comment there. Has anything changed from the beginning? Absolutely, I would agree with you guys. Fear at the beginning was crazy. Thinking about parents, thinking about older folks as well. That from your family, you're thinking what it's those who are at high risk. Personally, I haven't gone through a lung experience that was not good. Like that was like, oh my goodness, this could easily impact me in a very
Right.
negative way. So fear was big at the beginning, but now it's not so much fear that I find that is the conversation, but it's more of what are we going to do to get out of this regimen of lockdowns and these crazy measures that we're seeing? Like, how do we get past these vaccines? How do we get past these lockdowns? And so I know we were kind of giving a little insight of how we felt at the beginning, but I want us to now have a greater sense of how do you feel right now? How do you feel right now? Like, if you were to try to put it in a few words, like a recap of where we are right now. I'll kick it off to Marcelo. Like, how do you feel right now about everything that's going on with COVID-19?
Yeah, thank you. I think that it's hard for me to separate this from the spiritual.
Okay.
I think for me, the last couple of months for me has felt, just looking at the fruits of everything. We talked a lot about fear, um, and when you look at the fruit of fear, fear is not from God. And as a Christian, I believe that the spirit of fear is not from God, and I don't think God wants us to be scared of something like this. Of course, you have to use wisdom and be cautious, right? But going back to the beginning and looking at the wave of fear that overtook, I find it very difficult to separate the natural from the spiritual here. So, if you're asking me how my perceivance of all of this is
Mm,
today, 2021 December, I personally feel, aside from this being a real virus that, unfortunately has killed some people, unfortunately has had negative effects on some people, you know, in my spirit, I feel like this is a spiritual attack. And I
Yeah.
say that in the sense
Mm.
that, you look at the fruit of this, right? The fruit of this is to invoke fear. It's to invoke, you know, a sense of doubt, right? And I guess I'll just wrap it up with that, just saying that before. I don't want to take all the time here, but essentially for me, I see this as a spiritual attack,
So
spiritual
wait, you
war.
you think the intent of this, um, like was I know probably gonna get into it later, but do you think it was? Do you think it was? Is like um, an intentional fear that the governments are using this as fear, or do you think it was created to instill fear? What when you
Well,
say
yeah, sure, for sure. I mean, I think both ends of that. For example, if we look at, so I think that there is a possibility that this was out of a lab leak. At first, if you were to say that on Facebook, if you posted that, if you shared that, you would get flagged, you'd get censored. Um, but it wasn't until recently that now we're seeing things that there's been study of gain of function. I don't want to get too into like technical here. I'm not a professional in that field, but essentially, uh, on the record, it has been proven that there have been funding from the USA government, and different parts have funded different types of research, sorry, that create more um, contagious viruses, right? So we can dive in that, but then I
Yeah.
do believe in that
right,
end.
right, right?
But
No,
then
and
also,
there's a lot.
yeah,
There's
But
a
that
lot.
has been
There's
going
a
on
lot
for
to be
years,
said.
though. That's
Yeah.
that's not new, right?
Yeah.
That's been going on for years.
I
It's
was
just
gonna
that
say that.
I just think that it got, you know what? Maybe like I can't say that it was 100% it was created or not, but maybe it just got out of hand. Maybe they were playing around with some insects and it got out of hand.
Might have
right. And
did. Uh, Tell me, like, how do you feel right now? I mean, at the beginning we had fear. At the beginning we were worried. At the beginning we were washing and, like you said, spreading Lysol everywhere. But how do you feel now about this?
Now, honestly, I feel frustrated because I think there is a big
Yeah.
misconception between those that are vaxxed and those that are not vaxxed.
Okay.
I think that everyone can spread it, get it, and spread it. I mean, so there shouldn't be a difference. There shouldn't be discrimination. There shouldn't be a divide. And apart from fear, like Marcelo was saying, there's a huge divide, and that's also spiritual.
Yeah.
I agree. It's a very spiritual battle that we're in. And as Christians, we need to be awake and we need to know how to pray, because I believe that on our knees is probably the only way we're going to get out of this.
Yeah.
Well, apart from some other things, but that's different.
Yeah. No, I think we'll all agree that at every aspect of even this conversation, but anything related with COVID, there's definitely some scripture there that backs up the times that we're living, it being end days, similar to that.
Right.
Even the beginning of the pandemic, where there was no food, like people were super scared, and it was almost kind of giving us an idea of what it would look like, if Jesus were to come now for his church, and there would be the rapture if there was a whole bunch of things that happened in the past 2 years that definitely you find scripture has a lot to say with it. But I want to move on now because I mean we only have an hour on this show, and I know we're moving a little bit quickly
Let's
here.
move on.
But let's talk about these vaccines, right? Because when the pandemic started, I think we were all, praying and hoping for the vaccine. We were all wanting to get that solution, right? Because we were seeing, thousands of people in
Well,
Italy dying.
wait, you got to rephrase that. We wanted a way out of the lockdowns and stuff, and the vaccine was said to be the way out. So that's what happened. Like we were praying for a way out. We were praying for them to find a cure for it soon, and we thought the vaccine would be that cure, but it didn't go down that way,
Okay,
right?
and I have some comments about
So
when you say
Well, we as a church, like the church was praying for the church. I mean, there was like the church was praying for a cure, right? Because there's an illness, and we know God uses medicine and science to cure illnesses. We can't deny that.
Yeah.
So we were praying for a cure, right? We're praying for a cure from an illness that was there, whether created or not, it exists.
Yeah.
So then when they announced that, oh no, researchers are working on the vaccine. In fact, it was a team of doctors at Sunnybrook that first got to the mRNA protein and all that stuff, and they shared that turned into the development of the vaccine. But we thought it would be the vaccine. Like you get a tetanus vaccine, you have to get another one in 10 years. That's what we thought it was. At least that's
Got
what
it.
I thought it was.
Got it. Might have said you seem to want to say something. Let it out.
I wasn't praying for a vaccine. I wasn't. That's the truth. I think
Okay.
there's a lot of, I was praying for wisdom because there's a lot that can be done without a vaccine. And that's simply taking vitamins and
Yeah.
eating properly and exercising.
Yeah.
We went through COVID in our house, and I pumped my husband full of vitamins, and prayed over him constantly.
Yeah.
Was it scary? 100%. He lost more than 30 pounds.
Yeah.
Is he alive? Praise God, he is.
Now, I mean,
I don't want COVID, but I want to lose those 30 pounds.
now, are you a believer that the vaccine would have helped or negated some of those effects?
Not at all. I don't think it would have helped at all.
Got it.
I know too many people that I can count on at least one hand, if not both, that have had adverse reactions because of them. So no.
Okay. Okay. Marcelo, what are your thoughts, man, on the vaccines?
Yeah, just to add on to what our brother Abraham was saying, we were told that this was the way to get back to normal,
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And I think that, at first it sounded too good to be true. And of course, if this is the way out, if this was the carrot on the stick, if this was the way out, then of course, then, a lot of people jumped onto this. And, I think that in good faith, we did what we thought was right. Right. But then also, we're looking at now, how we're saying that, they're saying that the third dose is probably needed, right? For example, and I use the example here of Chile because I'm Chilean and I follow Chilean news. So the Chilean government had approved the third shot, the booster, months and months ago.
Oh yeah.
And the majority of the citizens have already taken the third shot.
Yeah.
Now in Chile, in order to have your vaccination passport, you need the third booster in order to have your validated passport. Right. Now they're talking about in February how you might need a fourth. Israel's on the same boat. Israel was the first nation to approve the booster, and they have approved the booster, and now they're also talking about the fourth, right? So we see a progression here, and one could say that the science is changing, the information that's coming out is we're adapting to the information, right? But for someone, let's say someone that hasn't taken the vaccine, if now you tell them, listen, the first one, the second one, that's not good enough. Now you need the third. Well, someone that hasn't taken their first, that's not very convincing to say, hey, listen.
Yeah, that's right. They got to get 3 shots.
Yeah.
Right. And not just that, but then it's almost like it's semantics. It's how you say things, right? Because essentially, it's looking like they're essentially going to say you're going to need a booster every 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
That's what England is saying,
Right,
actually.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and hold up.
So
and if that's the case,
yeah, go ahead. Finish
just
up.
to finish this, just the line plane here. If they would have said that from the get-go, I question how much people would have jumped on board, knowing that this is still an experimental vaccine that's only authorized through emergency use authorization.
Yes. So I think we can agree that, and we'll kind of just drop it there if this is news to you. I mean, I think we all agree that, A, the vaccines in general have been approved in a rapid pace unheard of before, right? This is not the typical regular approval. This hasn't gone through the typical regular tests. Like, let's say, for example, it takes 5 years. Guys, it just started last year, the pandemic, and we're already at our third shot, right? So we know, like, we can't disagree in that regard.
Okay, wait a minute. You can't say that. So this is the thing. We live in the age of information now, right? Because what happened is when they had polio and when they had measles and mumps and all that stuff, and they were developing vaccines for those, the number of people that died and got sick and all was not available, right? And that's the thing. We're ignoring that in those vaccines, even though they're stable, they were not stable when they first came out, but we just didn't have the media to get it out there. Like, everything is globalized right now. Like, I mean, I think, well, maybe Maria and I are the oldest in the group, but in the 80s, living in the 80s in the Dominican, for example, you would get news like later. You wouldn't get it right away. Even movies would come down.
I get that.
So
I get
we
that.
can't say that this is the only time that has happened. This is the only time it's been so public.
Okay,
right?
I agree. I agree with that. It's more of I'm setting up almost like a prelude to trying to understand, where do we feel with the vaccine itself? Do we feel that it is helpful in what it can do, or do we feel like it is harmful? And this is why I bring it up, because really a big topic here is the vaccine required, or is natural immunity not enough, right? If you get the virus, don't we have it in us already, in our bodies, to be able to, be immune to whatever the variants come and fight it off, right? And so part of what I'm trying to say here is, how do we feel here from us four? Do we feel that the vaccine is harmful? And I'll say this: politicians always overpromise. Of course, we have
course.
politicians that say, hey, you get the vaccine, we're going to get back to normal.
That's
But
right.
if you really look at what the vaccine was meant to do, it wasn't meant to prevent COVID. Like it was not meant. Now, was that sold to us? Absolutely. But if we at least were to let's say for a second believe that these vaccines were not meant to prevent COVID. In fact, they were only meant to boost our immune system so that we don't get seriously ill, so that we don't end up in the ICU, so that we don't end up hospitalized. Can we say in that point of view that the vaccines do work and they're not harmful? I'll let any of you guys speak first. So can we agree that the vax isn't harmful? Is the
No.
entire world being brainwashed here then?
Yeah.
So this is, well, I can go first on that, but I don't think it's harmful. I just think it has side effects on some people depending on specific conditions that they did not do enough tests to determine.
Okay.
Right? Like if you see a ad for a type of medication, it says this medication may cause this. Patients with this, and that should not take this medication. And all the and you're looking at the ad and you're like, why would I take this medication to relieve headache? And I got 150 things I got to look out for. That's what they should have done with the vaccine. They should have had enough bullet points to say if you have diabetes, if you have high blood pressure, if you have this, if you were born in the east side of the country, if this all that stuff, don't take the vaccine, because some people have been seriously ill from the vaccine and we don't know why. However, maybe the condition that that person had before, or something in their blood cell, maybe their blood type A or whatever, there's something. What we
Yeah.
know is that is not general, because the numbers are and the numbers are extremely high. Like the rate of people getting sick is extremely high, but they're saying, okay, they're not high enough. First it was like it was 100,000 and 6 million, something like that. Then they brought it up to 600,000 in 10 million. It's crazy numbers. So that's what I think. I don't think they're unsafe for everybody.
Okay.
I don't think they're
Okay.
unsafe for everybody. I think
Okay.
they're unsafe, but we don't know who it's unsafe for.
Okay. Okay. Marise, what's your thought on this?
I think that's a fair response. I think you're right. They are unsafe, but you have to remember it's a science experiment. So you could be fully vaxxed, but you have saline in your body, right?
Yeah.
So you're not fully vaxxed. You've got water and salt in your body.
Yeah, we don't know what they put in us.
Yeah.
Now,
Just
I don't know.
Yeah. Now,
could be saline.
just to respond to this though, because I mean, there's a lot to be said about these companies, these vaccination, Pfizer, Moderna. We all know that these guys are also really in it for the money, right? We know what drives these companies. Like we can't
There is
turn a
profit.
blind
We
eye
can't-
to that.
no.
This is to make profit. There's business-oriented people there that have nothing to do with the medicine aspect. Now, these guys aren't new in this either. It's not like they're in their backyards creating vaccines, and this is like their first time injecting things into people's body. Can we agree with that?
That it's not their first time making vaccines.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we can agree on that. And so it really, what I'm trying to at least understand here is that it can be harmful to certain people, but for the majority of people, the vaccine has not been harmful, at least up until right now from what we know.
That's the thing. What do we know? What they want us to know.
Okay?
And also, just if I could jump in there, we're talking about, a vaccine that has been made in less than a year. So there's no such thing as fast science, right? Because fast science means that you're jumping steps, crucial steps of efficacy, right? We're talking about no proper animal trials. We're talking about things that, you trial before. In human history, the fastest vaccine to ever pass, it took 7 years. It was the fastest vaccine to ever be from the moment that they created to the moment that it was brought out to the market. So 7 years. And, I can give you multiple examples of vaccines that have been approved and then later down in history, they've been taken out because they've been causing
something happened,
fertility
yes.
issues. They've been causing a whole bunch of issues, right? So, I just wanted to quickly say that, we're talking about a brand new technology that has never been tested on a large scale. We're talking about something that, we don't know the outcome. And Kay, listen, can some people have no effects from this? Yeah. But the truth is, anyone that tells you that this is safe, they're just guessing, because
So,
at the end of the
yeah,
day, we
yeah.
don't
But
know
anybody who
what the
says it's
long-term
unsafe is also guessing.
Well,
That's the thing.
I think
No, because there's evidence that it's
Like,
unsafe.
how do you
Right.
test it massively without testing it massively? Like, how do you test it for a lot?
but
Like,
you're-
what if
essentially
people?
you're
If
saying that
everybody
you need-
says,
So,
Go ahead.
so you're okay with everyone being a lab rat?
well, what I'm saying is, if everybody, well, we are lab rats in everything that we do. right? So if everybody says,
Yeah.
right, it's unsafe, I'm not going to get it until they test it on everybody. That would never get out of it. So, for example, 5G technology, right? 5G technology, they say is harmful to the body. Remember when microwaves first came out and people microwave stuff, you have to cover your manly parts as a dude because they said the waves would cause you not to have children. I've had microwaves in my house all my life, and I got 3 kids just like me. So all I'm saying is that how do you test it without testing it? Like, what would people want?
I
What would
yeah.
people want to see to make them comfortable to get this vaccine?
I see what Abraham is saying there.
But then
But
also,
go ahead, Marcelo.
no, I was just saying, like, look at the messaging that's being given out by our elected officials that they're telling us that this is safe and effective. Essentially,
Yeah, I agree
if
with
you
that.
want to call for what it is, they're lying
Yeah,
because
yeah.
essentially they don't know
They
and they're
don't know.
taking their
That's right.
word
That is right.
on something that is hopeful. That yeah, I hope it's effective and I hope it's safe and I hope there's no long-term effects.
Yeah.
Right.
But to say that it doesn't have,
So
that's
yeah.
wishful thinking, right?
So you know what? I think this leads into the next point fairly well here because so we could disagree on whether the vaccine is harmful or not, but the way that it is presented to us is also quite harmful because we see something, we see the politicians taking
That's
it,
right.
we see people at work, like everywhere the message is get vaxxed, get vaxxed, get vaxxed. And we always try to kind of, I guess, as a pushing, as something that motivates us to get vaxxed, at least what the news always shows us every day is, hey, here are the cases. Here are the people that are dying. And that alone, like, it's just like, wow, we've never had to experience this. All this information being thrown at us every single day. How many cases? Like, pre-pandemic, guys, I was barely even looking at the news, to be honest. And
That's
now
right.
it's like every day you're looking at this, and that also has, some sort of effect on us. This is the question that I want to make you guys. What is the deciding factor to get into lockdowns, to push vaccines at this rate? Is there something that you would be able to say, you know what? If 1 million people were dying every single day, then yes, let's be that lab rat. Yes, let's get into, whatever we have to do, whatever extreme to try to stop this, let's do it. What do you guys think is that line, and do you feel that we were close to it? Do you feel like we should have waited a little bit longer? Marcelo, I'll let you begin with this one.
Yeah, I think I'll start by saying that. So to quote Albert Einstein, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different
That's right.
result, right? So we've tried the lockdowns. All this does is it spikes mental health issues. We're limiting mobility of people. Essentially, the lockdowns, all they do is create anxiety, right? The whole point of ending the lockdowns was in the name of if you have your 2 doses, then essentially there will be no more lockdowns. So in order to reserve back to this, essentially I think that as a society we have to be asking very critical questions of the people that are in power right now because we have been told to do something in the name of freedom, as if we get this freedom back. But I guess just to maybe push off a little bit, I think that lockdowns are
Yeah.
non-essential. Not only are they non-essential, but they are detrimental to
We're-
young
and,
people.
and
They're
we're going to get
detrimental to
we're going to get to the lockdowns because I see that there's a lot to be said there. But do you think that there is a point where everybody has to stay at home because scientifically scientists haven't had time. They haven't had time with the virus. They don't know what is best next. Like, what is the factor that as a society we can all say, guys, you know what? Let's
We have
stay
to stay
home
home.
right now because we really don't know what's, our children can go out there and they can get it and they can die. Like, I want to know from you guys, like, what do you guys think is that factor? Is it the death toll number? Is there something else? Might have said.
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, we did the lockdown. We did the lockdown, and we're doing the vaccine. But how come we haven't done the medicine that treats it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
In terms of, listen, this is the thing. I don't trust that the numbers that we're getting are actual numbers from tests because there's been a lot of people that. So there was a group of mothers in the school district.
Yeah, I saw
and
that.
I won't mention the
TDSB.
name. I just said I won't mention the name.
I just said it.
now I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say. But
I'll
anyways,
say it for you.
Yo, you can go.
Well,
ahead.
you guys can't leave us here. Like,
So these mothers went. So you know how they're giving those special tests to take home, those kits,
yes.
right.
right? The mothers went and put those tests underwater to test and they all came back positive.
Mm,
That's right. They all
interesting.
tested positive. So this is the thing. The government says the numbers are going to go up to 10,000, and they magically do. Right? The numbers are going to go down if we lock down, and they magically come down. So that's where I am with this. I don't trust that number. The It's real, and I heard this infectious doctor talk about this, and he said that by going into lockdowns, we are limiting the potential of the human body for herd immunity, because if we're in lockdown, the virus stays with you. If you pass it on to somebody else, as people pass it on from one body to another, it weakens. I don't know if that's true, but that makes sense. That makes sense, like fried
So
chicken and done.
I get where you
That
guys
makes
are all saying.
sense. So
I get the points you guys are making here, but I want you guys to envision yourself being in, the position to make these decisions. The position to say, hey, Marister, Marcelo, Abraham, we just got this virus. It just begun. This is what's happening in Italy. This is what's happening around the world. It's here now in Canada. It's March 2020. We don't have a solution. Do you guys not feel that a lockdown made sense, at least at the beginning?
Yeah, if I could just jump in here, I think that yes, I think that if we were to see people around us dropping dead, you wouldn't need to
right.
force us to lock down because it would be in our intuition to lock down.
Yeah.
And so, and I pose this question for the audience, right? Like, if the media or if mainstream media wasn't constantly telling you that we're in the middle of a pandemic, would you really know we're in the middle of a pandemic? Would you know the last 2 years we're in the middle of a pandemic? Right? I have my opinion about that, but I think we need to look around us.
No, you wouldn't.
Our,
Like, and it's
right,
true. If I mean, Diego mentioned it in the chat. If they told us how many people died from smoking and from consuming
right.
sugar and salty foods every day, we would be in a pandemic of sugar, salty foods,
Right.
and
If they told
smokes.
us how many
Right?
accidents, how to motor vehicle collisions, how many people died driving, you would never get into a car again, right? Because
Yeah.
there'd be a
So
pandemic of accidents.
got it. So if there was a higher toll of death around us in society, would we all be willing to, test out the entire population in terms of, guys, let's approve these vaccines as fast as possible? Like might have said, would you be able to, again, let's say it's March 2020, there's friends, there's families dying from COVID-19. Would you be then willing to say, yes, let's go ahead with Moderna, let's go ahead with Pfizer, let's go ahead with these vaccines?
No,
I did it for the freedom. And they
Got it.
said
I didn't have peace.
you know what they said? You can travel, get the vaccine. Hey, let me get the vaccine to travel. Now they're saying, well, you can't travel with. They're gonna say for the booster, they're gonna say for the this, and people say, well, if you kids keep complying, they're gonna make you do all kinds of nonsense that you don't want to do just
So,
because of that. So
okay, let's move on to the next question here. There's a lot more coming our way, guys. If I'm looking at the chat as well. I'm sure we'll have some Q&A at the end. But don't worry, there's much more to come here. Are there any pros of lockdowns? I think we heard Marcelo speak a little bit on this. Abraham, I'd love to hear your take. What do you think? Are there any pros of lockdowns?
yeah, I mean, you get to spend more time with your family.
Yeah.
Um, you kind of reconnect with your family. That way, you start to think about what's important with the lockdowns. Because we
Okay.
were living in a rush. Other than that, no. Like, I mean, other than that, no. Like, from the beginning, I said they should allow us to have church, right?
Mm.
Because church community, you need church. Like,
So
and some
yeah,
people, some
yeah.
people need to go to
This is
work.
interesting.
Like
This is
some people,
interesting.
other than spending more time with your family at home, which we could do without a pandemic, you just have to
Yeah.
prioritize it. I don't see no benefit to this lockdown.
So if I may, can you guys try to put yourself in the shoes of medical professionals who have now the ICU being filled with people, the hospitals being filled because they have COVID and now they're worried and they want to be on a ventilator and there's no space for you. If you put yourself in kind of their shoes, do you see the benefit of a lockdown to potentially give at least time for the government, for those agencies to react in a possible way, whether that's making more space, building more beds, whether that's giving also time for scientists to come up with a solution? What do you guys think then? Do you see any pros of lockdowns there?
Well, but I'll say this. I'll say this. Okay, sorry, Marista. I know you're gonna say something, but listen to this. This is important in this thing. If the government is managing how healthcare works, because somebody goes, and this happens in the Dominican, it happens here, it's happened everywhere. I've heard testimonies about it everywhere. Somebody goes to the hospital, they have COVID, but they have like a light fever. treat that. Treat the first symptom, right? Don't let it get to pneumonia and then their lungs are full and then you have to get them into the ICU. They're not treating the initial symptoms. That's the thing. They need to treat the initial symptoms, and then so many people wouldn't get to the ICU.
Yeah.
That's what I think. But yes, if the doc, if
I will give a warning here, guys, that none of us are doctors, none of us are medical
no,
professionals.
we're not. But we'll see we're seeing what's happened. Like I know people for sure that went to the hospital with COVID, and they didn't treat the initial symptom. Like treat
Yeah.
the initial
Okay.
symptom, and
Okay.
then listen. I'll tell you the truth. I believe all of us have gotten COVID. Every single one of us have gotten COVID. If you were out
That
there,
that's a strong opinion, though.
that's just what I believe. Like if you
Yeah.
if after COVID came out,
Impossible to get evidence on that.
it's impossible to get evidence on the vaccine. We're all speculating here. Even them.
Listen,
Even them.
let me give Madison the last word here. I feel
Go
like
ahead,
she was
Madison.
going to
No,
say
I was
something.
just gonna say something quickly. Like, have you guys actually checked the ICU numbers? Because I check
Yes.
them a lot.
Yes.
It's just what they say.
Pardon me?
It's what they say in the media. That's all I've heard.
No,
I'm not-
I actually go into the hospital websites and check the ICU numbers. You're looking
Okay.
at 2, you're looking at 0. The highest one I've seen was 6.
You're right.
So in the city of Toronto, 6 is not a pandemic.
Yeah.
You can't tell me it's a pandemic. And what are they counting as an ICU number? Someone who's been there in long-term care? Because that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Because I know nurses, I know people that work in hospitals.
Yeah. This
So
is true. Now let's take a look at this chart here, because it does, and I'll try to kind of explain what we're looking at here. Basically, what you see here is a graph for those who have been with both vaccines, which up until recently, made you fully vaccinated. At the top there, you would see a orange and then a yellow line and then somewhat of a purple line. The orange line represents ICU occupancy, which means if you are, if you had the full vaccination, you have a high, almost 100% chance of not ending up in the ICU. You have a high chance of not ending up in the hospital. And up until recently, so you see that there's a dip in that third line. So up until around middle of December, you had a very high chance also to not get infected. In comes Omicron, the variant,
Yeah.
and then there's this dip in the, what the vaccine can do. The vaccine is not preventing us from getting the Omicron variant. But what is an interesting indicator here, and it's tough to say because this is sometimes what is called like a lagging indicator, which you won't really notice it until later. The ICU occupancy and hospital occupancy is still up there. So even though there's been a dip in people getting infected, what the vaccine has done, according to this graph, is that you are experiencing less symptoms, you are not as seriously ill. And this is what this graph is trying to show us, that, hey, the vaccine, it may not be there to prevent you from getting it, but even if you do get it, it's there to strengthen your immunity. What do you guys have to say about these type of numbers?
Those numbers come from the same source where the COVID numbers come from.
I get
that's the
it,
thing.
and we can doubt the source in the next question, but let's take a look at this as a near, truth that we can get with these stats.
Right. So we're looking at from August 2021
Yeah.
to now December, right? So we're talking
Yeah.
about so is there essentially the graph is showing that there's an increase or a decrease in people being hospitalized?
Basically, what this is showing is that if you
It's an
are
increase-
fully
a decrease in
vaccinated,
protection.
It's an
Right,
increase
so-
in the percentage chance that you have. So
Yeah,
Right. That's what I understood. Right. I just want to make clear what I
So,
understood. So essentially,
yeah, just
yeah,
to
we're looking
clarify,
at-
so everybody understands in the
Yeah,
call
sorry.
is that what this graph is trying to show us is that, listen, even if you're vaccinated and you get the Omicron variant, you have a high likelihood of not ending up in the ICU and the hospital. And that is what also the booster shot is there to also continue boosting your immunity. Go ahead.
So my question then with the booster shot is, how would they know what makeup they need in order to attack that specific, what is it called, of the
booster
virus?
shot, the booster shot is just more of the same thing. I don't think they develop new science. It's just another shot of the same thing.
So then what's the
Yeah.
guarantee? There is no guarantee.
They
Guarantee in
can't-
what sense?
They can't guarantee. There is no
Wait,
guarantee in medicine.
guaranteeing
So
what?
you guys like
Guaranteeing
playing
what?
Russian roulette.
Yeah, no, I mean, not
Whenever you
really.
go to the doctor, whenever you go to the doctor, you kind of play Russian roulette. I believe in science and I believe in medicine, but the doctor will tell you, take this, come back in 30 days. Why do you think that is?
But hold on. We're not trying to say guarantee here that you won't
There is
get
no
infected,
guarantee.
right? We're looking at this as a guarantee close. I mean, closer to guarantee. It's tough to guarantee anything, but it's really trying to say you're gonna have a way higher chance of fighting this and not ending up in the ICU and hospital
If you
if you
have a
take the
booster.
vax, if you
Uh,
take the booster. What do you guys think about this?
no, I don't think so. I took the vaccine because of the freedom that it would bring me. That's it. It
So
has
now
nothing
Right.
to
you're
do
not free
with.
anymore, brother.
Mhm.
Well,
You're
now they
stuck
got to lock
again.
us down again. Now we got to take another one to be free. So that's the whole point. And
Just so you
then
know, there's like about 9 of them coming. So
well, yeah, I got a lot of muscle in my arm. I can take up to 12, I think.
Yeah.
But
All right.
yeah,
You
Well,
know what?
like we
Just
don't
to
know.
I think that we all have to do that level of risk benefit ratio assessment for
Right.
ourselves. And I think that if you are a senior citizen and if you already have pre-existing conditions, I think that that information is quite informative for you. And I think that you know a lot of it has to do with your circumstances, right? If you're already, we know that the majority of people that get attacked by this are in a specific age group. We know that
yeah.
there's a specific type of comorbidities that people have.
mhm.
The majority of people that die from this have one or more comorbidity, right? So, yeah, you know what? If you're in that camp where you feel like you're vulnerable, you can be vulnerable to this. Hey, listen, I think that you should take that into perspective, right? But then, we're talking about everyone in this room. At least we're all young, we're all healthy, and I think that the risk benefit ratio that we might have might be different from somebody else, right? So
Absolutely.
I think it's important to take that into account.
That's
It
good.
might be, but you got to remember. We got to. I mean, guys, we got to remember. Listen, it's like they're. I mean, I think we were going to talk about that, but they're taking it to the extreme and telling you like, you can't work if you don't have the because you
Yeah.
could do
Right.
Yeah.
with I could do without restaurant, without the movies, without travel. I could do without any of that stuff. But then
Yeah.
people are gonna say, well, you can't work. Eventually, they might tell us in churches you can only have services for people who are fully vaccinated. You guys know that
Correct.
that
Yeah,
probably
and we're,
become
we're gonna get the we're
so
gonna get to kind of the limits of our rights.
right.
That we're definitely gonna spend some time on that. Again, I didn't ask Maristed and Marcelo and Abraham to bring some numbers, anything like that. I'm using these numbers more of us to guide the conversation. One thing that I was curious of, even getting into this call, was okay. Let's look at okay if the death toll was the number one factor that made the government go so quickly in passing vaccines. If the death toll factor was the number one thing that caused for lockdowns to really be considered, I wanted to really know, well, where was the difference? Like, what are we looking at in terms of the death toll? And so what you're looking at right now is over the last 3 years. Okay, is the data basically from all deaths related in the U.S. And what you see here from April 2020 up until now is that there has been some spikes out of the normality. So you see those waves, and then you see on top of that, there has been a spike in deaths. Now, whether, like Marcelo said there, whether that is in in the population that is at risk, such as, let's say, 80 and up, or those who don't have a proper immunity system, or immunocompromised. What do you guys have to say about this? Again, if you are in the position of government, if you are a leader and you're seeing that there is a spike in death, what do you do with this data if it is true?
I'm just seeing this for the first time here, and
Yeah, yeah.
I could quickly see here that the spikes happen between sometime maybe in November and January, that it's spiking, and then it dips back down sometime in April. So what happens during this time on the northern hemisphere? Well, we have winter, right? So there's a lack of sun. People are stuck inside more. There's less
Mm-hmm.
exercise because of the frigid months.
Yeah.
Right. So we're talking about there's a lot of factors that come into play here. Vitamin D is crucial for your immune system, right? Most people that live in Canada, if you go to your doctor and if you get a blood test, you might be deficient in vitamin D. You
Yeah.
might not be getting enough exercise. If it's minus 20 outside, what are the chances of you getting in your car, driving to the gym, doing all these things, right? So I think there's a lot to factor in here, right? And the spike and the dips here seem natural to what is that of the natural immunity that goes up and down in the wintertime. We know in the wintertime more people get sick because people are gathered inside more spreading happens. Like I said, less vitamin D, right? So there's a lot of factors that come into play there too, right?
I'll add another question to this because, again, as we're looking at this, I think we've already heard from most of us saying lockdowns isn't the choice here. Approving a quick
That's right.
vaccination isn't the choice here. What about the mask mandate? You're looking at this, the spike. Oh my gosh, that people are dying. We're trying to understand what's causing it. How does this thing even spread? What do you guys think about the mask mandate?
The only good thing about the mask is you
Bogus.
ain't got to smell people's breath no more. That's
Maricela, I'll let you start that one off.
No, I think it's bogus. I think it's harming. It's more harmful than it is good. And there's some videos. There's a virologist that you can check out. He's a doctor. He was a professor at Guelph University, I believe. Dr. Bridle. He's got a really good video,
I've
and he
seen his
does
videos.
like it. Yeah, like he
Yeah,
does a really good examples. You can see how the air particles come out anyways of your mask. You're not
yeah.
saving anybody from anything.
Okay.
I think it's just to instill fear. I think it's to it's a psychological. It's also a psychological warfare, especially for our kids
Yeah.
that have to walk around with masks. Mine are exempt, but I'm fortunate that way.
Yeah.
But not everybody is.
Got it. Marcelo, what do you think?
Yeah, it's the constant reminder that we are still in a pandemic, right? I think the research on masks has been out for many years before COVID.
Yeah.
We're talking about COVID being aerosolized, right? So we're talking about a disease
Yeah.
that is in air particles. And the mask, the typical mask that people use, most people use cloth masks, right? It's like trying to stop a mosquito going through a fence, like a regular, metallic fence, right? So we're talking about a ratio here that the mask, I wear the mask at work, and I follow all the procedures because we're trying to be sensitive to other people. And I think if you've ever been risky enough to not wear a mask to a grocery store, people will stare at you like crazy. And just
Yeah.
don't do it if you
Now
want to
they
get
kick
stared
you
at.
out. They kick you out.
No,
No,
Yeah.
not here.
there's some different places. People are more understanding and whatnot. But anyways, I digress from that. But I just want to say that I think that the mask more than anything is what is keeping all of this alive,
Yeah.
whether they're effective or not. I mean, I
Yeah,
think the information is out
that
there.
is an interesting take in terms of just being a reminder, a visual reminder. I will remind everybody again. We're just trying to have a conversation here. I love the chat. We'll definitely spend a few minutes taking a look there, and I think this is important to just talk about because, at least in my case, in my personal life, I turn to work and I see 99% of people get vaxxed, get the booster shot, the typical classic Canadian that
Yep.
doesn't necessarily have a strong opinion about anything, to be honest,
Well,
and they are kind of just going through life. And then I turn around, and then I do see a lot more division and of different of opinions in my Christian, in my friends there in those groups. I do see some more of people questioning if this is right, and I get it because this is what we grew up in the faith. A lot of us, those of us who are new to it, we know that we are here to question the things of this world. Now, I feel that everything that what we've discussed is that we have a lot of problems with mandates. We have problems with mandating the vaccine. We have problems with mandating the masks. We have problems with potentially, mandating these lockdowns where if you wanted to go eat out and it's your anniversary, you can't because you're not
Because you're
allowed
not
to
vaccinated. Yeah.
go there. And so, is the problem mandates? Would all of this make more sense if the vaccine was optional, if the mask was optional, if all of these mandates were optional? Marcelo, I'll let you kick that off.
I would say, yeah, I would say that it would make a difference in how people perceive things, right? I think when you tell people you can't do this, you can't do that, it does bring up some people have to ask questions as to why, right? I think a lot of people are just willing to go with the flow, but there's a percentage of people that are willing to ask the question why. And it's not just these mandates. These mandates are infringing on our charter rights. We are as Canadian citizens, as people that live in Canada, as permanent residents, as people that live here, we have certain inalienable rights, meaning that government doesn't give us these rights. Government is there to protect these rights. These are rights that we have as human beings that essentially are God given. The ability to move around, mobility rights, the ability to say what you want to say, even though it might not be a great idea. All these things, these are fundamental freedoms that essentially are being taken away from us. And
Yeah.
in order to be taken away, the evidence has to be major. There has to be major evidence to why the government is proceeding this way. And I think that we're not really putting the government on the pedestal, like we're not
Yeah.
scrutinizing them enough, I think.
Maricel, what do you think? Do you think the problem, a major problem here, are the mandates?
100%. I think, like Marcelo said, we have our rights, that are totally being taken away. They're being stripped away from us, and people are just letting it happen. I think it should be a choice. If we look at Florida and Texas, and yes, their weather is different, so the way their bodies are reacting to this virus is going to be different. But they live mask free,
Mm,
you know, and it's freedom like we used to know.
yeah. I want to say something here as well. I do feel that there is definitely a problem with perception and the way these things are presented to us. Now, do I agree that there are certain methods that sometimes are more effective in the long run than others, even though it requires mandates? Yes, I do agree. For example, like you're gonna have better driving if you have lights, if you have stop signs, if you have all these things and these rules to
Yeah, things that
follow,
are necessary.
things that are necessary. And so it is tough though when we are looking at something that impacts our body, that impacts our kind of personal life and our choice. But Abraham, what do you think about mandates? And now I want to switch off as we kind of go to the next question, as what do we do with this, especially as it infringes in people's rights? It infringes in people not wanting to do it and then being limited in society. What are your takes on that?
Yeah, so the mandate is the big problem because they're creating the mandates based on unknown, right? There's not enough evidence to suggest that the lockdowns work. There's not enough evidence to suggest that the vaccine works. What I'm saying is the lockdowns I disagree with completely. But if the vaccine was to actually work, we would never know until they test it on humans. So this is the thing because you mentioned something about people at work being just open to vaccinations because they may be third or fourth generation Canadians or whatever it is. What happens is that a lot of us don't have like our great grandparents and your grandparents alive in this country right now, right? So if you see somebody dying from COVID, your perception of whether you should get vaccinated or not is going to be different, regardless of all the research that you do, because you just saw somebody dying from COVID. So, but the mandates in terms of if they didn't make it mandatory, people wouldn't do it. People wouldn't do it. People it's mandatory, and people are not doing it right now. But the mandate should not be in place unless they had enough evidence in order to put in the mandates. However, they put in the mandates, and this is a catch for us as Christians. We are called upon by the Bible, and a lot of people don't agree to follow the law unless the law is sinful. Regardless of
Mm,
what the law is, you got to pray
mm.
for them, but you got to follow the law unless the law is sinful. Let's say they come up with a crazy law, like like
So an
black people
experiment
can't
isn't
drive.
crazy.
Right. No. So what I'm saying is you got to the law. So this is the thing. The law is not to get the vaccine. If they make the vaccine a law, I would disagree with it. The vaccine is not a law yet. They're just telling you you can't do a whole bunch of stuff if you're not vaccinated. But it's not a law, right? It's not like you need to have a driver's license to drive. It's not that. It's not a law.
Hmm.
So if when they have a law that is infringing on the Bible, at that point we have to bow out and say, listen, I'm done with this part of it,
So okay.
right?
So if I understand Abraham, you're not saying that it's not yet really a violation of our spiritual kind of livelihood. Would you agree it is a violation of our human rights more as a humanity?
Well, human rights is defined by whatever humans define. So, and I don't know a lot about the Charter of Rights. Like I have no law background at all. But if it's in the Charter of Rights and it's a violation of that, the same humans that are supposed to uphold that Charter of Rights are the ones saying, now you need to do this. So maybe they need to make an amendment to the Charter of Rights and all that stuff. Because remember, it's the government that is creating these mandates. It's not companies. It's the government that's mandating that
Yeah.
these things be done. Right. So I mean, people at companies that are private and they're fighting the fact that they need to get a vaccine. Companies are offering alternatives. Like you have to get a test every 48 hours. You have to get a test every 24 hours. You're not going to lose your job yet. Well, in some companies, but I know that a lot of government entities are saying we're not gonna have you working anymore unless you're vaccinated. Like the TDSB laid off a whole bunch of people. They call what's called unpaid leave, right? Unless you do this. If you can afford to go on unpaid leave because you think the vaccine is going to hurt you or it might, then that's when you need to pray and ask God for
Yeah.
guidance. I'll be
Yeah.
honest. I
Yeah.
got vaccinated and I didn't just go say get the vaccine. I was praying, saying, esta vacuna, you think it's all right? And I didn't feel nothing in my heart, and I felt confirmation. And even when I was sitting in the chair, I was like, God, I'm about to get this vaccine. Let your Holy Spirit be somewhere around here, right? And then I just got the vaccine because I didn't feel any conviction in my spirit not to get the vaccine.
All right.
But
So
that's an
we're
individual thing, right? Everybody has their
yeah.
own way of talking to God and being convicted of stuff. I can't
Okay, so
put my
so
convictions on people.
we're getting to more of now the free to speak kind of part of the show, and I know maybe we'll go a few minutes late here just as I want to take a look at the comment sections. But as a guiding point to this, Abraham, you're sharing your experience in terms of you got vaccinated. You're kind of just putting that in God's hands. A lot of what I've heard from people in the Christian realm that did get vaccinated, they would just say, listen, it takes just as much faith to get the vaccine as it does to not get the vaccine. In other words, this division that we have is something that each of us kind of have to live with, and that is something that really kind of is going to work within us in our relationship with God. Like, how do you
Right.
feel about getting vaccinated is something that really is troublesome, especially when you hear in the news, hey, you got to get vaccinated again. And it's like, well, God, wasn't I trusting you in that first one and that second one? And so you're kind of going through a process. And now if you're a person who hasn't gone vaccinated, who is unvaxxed, you're saying, well, now I don't only need 2 shots, I might need 3 shots. And so I'd love to hear, Maricel, Marcelo, what are your thoughts? Feel free to speak here about, how this has impacted maybe your faith over the past, year and a bit or almost 2 years. Because again, I do think that it takes just as much faith for both sides here. Perhaps you disagree, but I'll let Maricel start first here.
I definitely agree. I think like Abraham, I did pray. And I had conviction. I couldn't do it. You know what I mean? I didn't have peace about it. And until I have peace, I can't roll up my sleeve and put that in my arm. And I think we tread on a very thin line as a church. And that's where my conviction and my frustration is. As a church, I think we tread a very thin line because we are allowing these things to take place. And we're letting the government come in and tell us how we can worship, when we can speak, how we can speak, how many people we can let in our services.
Yeah.
I know people that are not vaccinated and aren't Christian, but are turning to God. So what if it comes down the ropes, okay, now, sorry, church, according to the government, now you can't let people in that aren't vaccinated. I'm sorry, that's not okay.
We're not there yet, though. We're not there yet.
But we're letting it happen.
Yeah. So okay, I get that, and I accept kind of that take. It's not the first time that I kind of hear that kind of those feelings. Marcelo, what do you think? Oh, we can't hear you, brother. Let me see if maybe something happened there with the mic. But feel free to interrupt me anytime. We can't hear you just yet. Um, my take, just kind of off of what Maricel was saying there, is recently I have had my doubts about the vaccine, especially with the third one having, the booster shot. Man, like having to take this. But what has kind of still allowed me to lean towards, taking the vaccine and taking the booster shot is that I do see still a lot of fear on both sides. Like the fear that the government places is if you don't get it, then you're not going to be able to live your life. If you don't get it, then you have higher likelihoods of getting sick and all these things and all these things. And I'm just like, man, I've gone through a lot worse than COVID. I've gone through way worse that God has taken me out of. Like, that's not really the kind of fear that I'm trying to get to. I do I try to kind of research, like, what's the vaccine for? Okay, it's there to strengthen me. Well, hey, I'm a guy who goes to the gym. I take protein. Like, I take stuff to help my body. I'm for those things. Now, when I look at the other side of the folks that, sometimes they say, hey, don't get the vaccine. There's some people that say, hey, it's the mark of the beast. I'm a believer that if that is a, precursor to it, I'm not going to be there when that happens. So there's a lot of things that fall under precursor that it just I don't need to care so much about it, to be honest. At least that's my personal opinion. And then I just see a lot of fear in saying, well, hey, you don't know the impact that it's gonna have in your body. You don't know the long-term effects. And so it's like I don't know. It's like I have to have faith to take it, and I have to have faith to not take it. And right now, I've just been leaning towards, just kind of following what the government authorities say. Like some people say, hey, that's kind of a sheep move, and maybe I would agree, but you know, I'm the type of person that I try to go to the people that know more about certain things about me. Like, for example, maybe some of you guys have gone to your family physician and they've told you don't take it. Maybe some of you guys have gone to them and they've told you take it. And that maybe is the word that you needed to hear to go and take it. Maybe that was the word that you needed to hear to not go and
To
take
not
it.
take it, yeah.
And so that's where I'm at right now. Marcelo, are you back with your mic? No, you're not, brother.
So you got to change the mic in the settings, Marcelo. You got to change the
Yeah.
mic in the settings. However, this is okay. So this is the thing. Everything that happens is under the watchful eye of God, right? So there's something called the Treaty of Rome. You guys can look it up. It was signed in 1957. The Treaty of Rome was the first step in the reconstruction of the Roman Empire, which is the 10 toes of clay and metal from the statue. So we're not going to get into all that, ecclesiastic stuff. But however, what I'm saying is everything that happens, technology, the internet, this and this and that. Because I distinctly remember my dad used to say, the Bible says, all eyes shall see him at the same time. How is that going to be possible? Then the internet can. And now we're in the age where everybody could potentially be watching the same thing at the very same time. I don't know how God is going to do it. Not necessarily he's going to use a screen. But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that everything is leading to the mark of the beast. But the Bible clearly states that the Satan wants to, release the Antichrist, but he can't because the Holy Spirit is impeding it because the church is still on earth. So if they say to me, I'm going to go bold about this. If they say to me, listen, we have a chip that could grab all your data, your cards, license, and everything. All you need to do is inject it into your body and all that stuff. That I will wait for a lot of clinical trials for. But if they say that,
Man, that's another show, bro. That's another show.
It exists, by the way.
Yeah.
If we are still here,
Yeah.
nothing that happens is the Antichrist.
I get it.
If
I get
we are
what you're
still here,
saying in
nothing that
terms
happens
of
in the Antichrist.
yeah. Marcelo, I hear you. You're back, man.
I think so. Yeah, that was weird.
Yes.
But
All good.
no, you know what? For me, my conviction, and it's Naomi was saying that people might say that's a bit sheepish, like a sheep. I think that it's so many groups in this world right now. There's so much divide going on, and I think as the church, we have to be able to support each other and love each other despite of our differences, right?
Yeah.
And for example, like I don't agree with. I have a different perspective of end times. For example, I think that that the church will go through some sort of tribulations. I think we will go through the great tribulation. I think we will be here to see things, and this may be a preceptor to that. But it's one of the reasons for me why I'm a bit vocal about this whole subject is because in Revelations, it's funny, but in Revelations 18:23 it says, "And by the sorceries all the nations were led astray." And if you look at the definition of the root word of that word, it's the Greek word
Pharmaceutical.
pharmakia.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's the word where we get pharmacy from. Right. And I'm not necessarily saying that, this is that. Listen, all I'm saying is that in Matthew 24, in the Olivet Discourse, the thing that Jesus the most warns us about, talking about end times, is don't let yourself be deceived. And don't let yourself be deceived. When they say that Jesus is over there, don't let yourself be deceived. When they say that Jesus is in the mountain, when they say, look at these false prophets, don't be deceived. And I think that it's important for us to look at all possibilities.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us to hope for a pre-tribulation rapture, if you want to say, but to be prepared in case, hey, listen, if we are here during some bad times, if all the church is hearing that, hey, listen, you're not going to be here through any bad times, you're going to be taken out before all this bad stuff happens. Hey, listen, if we go through some bad times, it makes sense why Jesus said, "In the hearts of many will grow cold," because people will be in disillusion to why we're in these times. So that's kind of my.
I appreciate you presenting that point of view. Obviously, I mean, I have a different point of view in terms of the end times and tribulation. Right. I do agree, though, that the church will go through persecution, that the church is going through it.
We will have
and it is actually it's a very tricky persecution that happens in North America because it happens mixed in with comfort. It happens mixed in with my rights, my freedom. Versus there's some places in the world right now that persecution is literally your life is on the line.
Right.
But I do appreciate seeing it in that sense. The reason why I haven't brought up too much scripture in this particular show is because I do see how we can easily defend both sides here. I do see how we can easily, put up an argument to say, you know what, we should trust in our officials, and you know what, us who are children of God, we know exactly what it is to humble ourselves, to not be proud, to not, think that we know it all. And that alone, in those lessons, we can take them and apply it sometimes to our lives when it comes to humbling ourselves with our bosses, humbling ourselves with our parents, and even humbling ourselves with authorities. So I understand, though, on the flip side of that, there's also fighting against the world, knowing that Jesus Christ said, if they hated me, man, they're going to hate you even more because you
Hmm.
follow me. And so I understand that in those both arguments, it's easy to include scripture. But what I kind of want us to wrap up here, and Marcelo, you were saying it there at the beginning, is that love factor that perhaps that has been missing in terms of understanding that, hey, these guys have a very unique conviction with this vaccine. To be honest, I don't see this related as being a salvation factor. Like if you get vax or if you don't get
No,
vax,
that
this
doesn't
has
make a
nothing
difference.
to do with your status in
No.
heaven. At least in my books, at least the way I would interpret scripture. And I would love to see kind of what you guys have to say about this.
No,
Marister,
so I. Oh,
or
go ahead. Go
sorry,
ahead.
and Abraham, you can jump in right
No, I was
after.
gonna
Like,
say that. I mean, I saw Diego comment pre tribulation rapture. Like we have to be careful about what we're talking about. The church will go through some tribulations, but like when the callous of the wrath of God is poured upon the sons, the children of disobedience, we're not gonna be here. So we have to understand what that tribulation is.
hey man, season
Like so
three, Bendito
that's so
show.
we
That's
no,
a
but
good
which
that's a good
And
topic.
that's
we
gonna
should
be a
bring
good
we should
topic.
bring
That's gonna be a
Marcelo
good
on.
topic. But
But no,
That's a
let's
good topic.
I don't think
let me get Marister to just to say a point here in terms of
salvation and
um
the vaccine.
no, not just that, but how's your take in terms of coming alongside people like myself and others that are vaccinated? How do you approach it? Do you see yourself that you need to preach to us in that regards, or how do you handle it?
I don't think I need to preach to you guys. You guys have made your decision. My point with my posts on Instagram, for example, is to create awareness. If you didn't know, now you know,
Love it.
because that's my conviction. Do
Yeah,
I pray for everybody? Hands down, because I don't want anything to happen to anybody. Like
yeah,
I said, I know somebody personally who is a close family member who unfortunately, because of the vax, got is now has Guillain-Barré syndrome.
yeah.
And that hurts and that's sad. And who do you blame? Nobody. So you keep praying and you look up, right? And so that's my prayer for everybody, that because our brothers and sisters in Christ, like they did it for their reasons, and I just pray God's blood over them and protection. I don't hate anybody. I
Yeah.
mean, we need more love, like Marcelo said. We totally need more love.
Abraham, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, no, I
Abraham, you
mean,
can come over to my house for dinner anytime, brother.
well, I don't visit
Anytime.
Don't forget your
unvaccinated people. No,
mask.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Listen, people who don't want to, like I said, listen, the vaccine, whether it works or not, like I don't know, right? Is the opportunities that it brings, and I was convicted. Listen, this is not nothing's gonna happen, and I got the vaccine for the opportunities that it brings. If they say, well, you know what, you have to get the booster or you have to get because remember, we get like if you have a kid 8 days in, you have to go vaccinate them. And then you have to go vaccinate them after and after and after. Okay, you don't have to, but you run the risk of those vaccines. Like if your kid goes to school and they're not vaccinated, you have to provide all these reasons for the vaccines. But like in my family, everybody have always been vaccines from the beginning, measles and mumps and all this other stuff. You all get all the vaccines. So this one, I don't think it's any different. Right now it's different because it's new. 10 years down the line, we're going to be saying the same thing. This is just like mumps. This is just like measles. So if I agree that you have to be convicted on your own to get these vaccines. What I don't agree with a lot of people is you leaving your way of life. For example, if I work, they require you to have the vaccine, right? And you have to stop working tonight to get that vaccine unless you get that vaccine, and you're going to lose your income and you can't support your family because you
Right.
lose your income. Now you either have to find another source of income to support your family, because if you don't support your family because you don't want to get the vaccine, not supporting your family becomes a graver sin than getting the vaccine.
Mm.
right?
Okay.
So that's a point there. So I don't want people to get confused and be like, okay, this is sinful, I'm not going to get the vaccine. No, the vaccine is not sinful, but if you can live without getting the vaccine, no problem. Don't get it. That's up to you. That's up to each
Yeah.
individual.
Yeah.
But if they're telling you you can't support your family without getting vaccine, man, just go get the vaccine and go make that moolah.
Yeah,
That.
but what happens in the case of my uncle who did it because of work?
Mm,
Now he can't work, he can't walk.
But
yeah.
that's the thing. So that this is the
But
thing. Your
now, okay.
Who's going to
So
support
uncle
him?
is one of
You?
the
that,
he's one of the
yeah.
few. Like he's one of the few, and that's the thing.
That's
It,
what they tell you. There's more than a few.
even if it is more than a few, like listen, the 85% of people in Ontario are vaccinated, right? That's what they're saying.
That's what
85%.
they're saying. Yeah.
That's what they're saying,
Yeah.
right? And people are not walking around dropping dead because they got vaccinated. I just think that both sides are
Actually.
overstating their numbers. Like the sides of the vaccination works is overstating the numbers, and the side of the vaccination is killing people is also overstating the numbers.
Can we agree on that, guys? That there is over amplification? Maybe we can, maybe we
I
cannot.
think
But listen,
I
listen, listen. Because we're way past our time here, I do want to give everybody though a last chance to speak to say as you wish. So I'm gonna give anybody want to start off? I'll give everybody a minute to kind of just wrap up, say a few words, and we'll take a look at some of the comments. Anybody want to start off? I'll start. I'll start. Listen, I believe in the vaccination as something that can strengthen your body in the sense that you're fighting something, it's going to help you fight it. Is it going to prevent you to get to get the vid? Absolutely not. That's not what the vaccine is about. At least in terms of the reports that is made
right.
out, that isn't what it is. Now, have we been tricked as a population? Have we been overpromised? Absolutely. But guys, this happens every single day. This happens with absolutely every politician, with everybody in leadership. That isn't enough for you to be swayed in a certain way and to be frustrated today that say, hey, you know what? We got to get another booster shot. Well, guess what? When the vaccines came out, even they were saying this is only going to last so much. But what were politicians saying? Guys, get the vaccine and everything's
Exactly.
going to go back to normal. That wasn't true. So now we are living the reality of having to face the lies of politicians. And I think that's where our faith is being tested. That's my wrap. I'll let Marcelo go next. And we lost Marcelo yet
We
again.
lost you
So
again.
I'll, Marcelo, if you have to, come out, come back in. Marister, go for it.
All right. Like I said just recently, I don't hate on anybody. I really pray for everybody. Vaxxed, not vaxxed. I think, like at the end of the day, like Abraham was saying, we all kind of have to go in with our own conviction. And I felt like God was pushing me to share information, let them know what they do with it. They're gonna do with it regardless.
Right.
And that's all I'm about. If you didn't know, now you know. And let me pray for you.
Mm,
you know and yeah, just there needs to be more love.
yeah,
I don't need to know if you're vaxxed. It's not going to prevent me from hugging you or not hugging you and saying hi to you like I would in any Latin setting.
yeah.
you know
Awesome. Marcelo, you back?
I think so.
yes.
Yes, you are. All right,
Beautiful.
brother.
So I just want to maybe end off by saying that I think we have a beautiful opportunity. Like First John says that 2,000 years ago he said that we are in the last hour, and if that was 2,000 years ago, then what are we in now? I think we're in the last seconds, and I think that this is a beautiful opportunity. That if you've been on the fence, if your relationship with Jesus has been tempered, if you feel like you've strayed away, this is such an opportunity for you to come back to Christ, to look at the signs of the times, to look at the reality of the world that we're living in, and to let this be an opportunity for you to be emboldened and to be encouraged, and just giving a word to anyone that is struggling to really be encouraged to follow Jesus, that Jesus is the only way, the truth, and the life, and all these problems that we have on this earth will one day come to an end, but our eternity is only found in Jesus. So I encourage you to find the Lord, to make this time as an opportunity for you to come to Christ, and yeah, love you guys.
Love it. Love it. Abraham?
Listen, if you went to a remote city somewhere and they were eating worms for dinner, and if you didn't eat the worms, you were not considered to be a persona grata, like a welcome person with them. In order for you to preach the service after dinner, you have to eat the worms. would you eat the worms? Um, I
Powerful
would
analogy.
I would eat the worms. So I'm not saying this is the same case. What I'm saying is that Jesus was obeyed the laws of his day, and the vaccine is not yet a law, but he did fight what he thought was unconstitutional and unrighteous. But he said, "Give to Caesar what to Caesar, and then give to God what's to God." If you're gonna lose your job and can't support your family, this is my biggest stake. Forget about restaurants, forget about eating, forget about all that. If you're gonna lose your job and can't support your family because of a saline shot, get the shot, get the vaccine. Pray and say, God, this is it. Unless God gives you another solution, you got to pray. You say, God, this is it. I don't want to be worse than the Pharisees because I don't support my family. And
Yeah.
go get the shot. If you're going to get it to go to the movies and all that stuff, don't bother with that. But
Yeah.
for work, I would say now when they say you either have to be vaccinated or you cannot attend worship, people are saying, why would you let it go to that? Why would you let it go to that?
Yep.
Well, it's not if we're gonna let it go to that, is we have to wait until it happens. Like you can't start an action now to something that you don't know. And I know people say like Maria is saying that Maria Jose is saying that God will provide another job. If God provides you another job, then good. But I think that you pray and then be convicted. And if you need to get the vaccination, don't stop feeding your family to get the vaccination. You could win a lawsuit, but it's going to be 6 months before you get it to court, maybe a year before you get a decision. How long can you go without that paycheck?
All right, brother. That wraps up the questions, the kind of guide that I had for tonight. Again, I want to say thank you to Marcelo, thank you to Maristid.
Yeah,
You guys
thank
have
you
been
guys.
awesome in terms of just having this conversation. Honestly, if you take a look at the comments, you guys, we hear y'all. I know that there's a lot of people out there who
There's a lot.
feel uncomfortable with the vaccine, with the mandates, with everything that's going on. I appreciate everybody talking about love. I appreciate everybody being able to look, past that as we kind of look at each other and recognize that we're just human beings. So thank you guys. I will, open up to my state of Marcel. If you guys got to drop off, feel free. I say that we're just gonna stay about 6, 7 more minutes, just taking a look at the comments. If you guys have any questions, let us know. I see a few there, and I will have this last plug. As you guys see, this is season 2, episode 9. We are going to do episode 10, but when is episode 10 happening? Well, drum roll. It's gonna
Live.
happen
It's gonna be
live,
live.
y'all. It's gonna happen live, and when is it gonna happen? It's happening February 26th because that is when we are doing 9 to 9
That's
2022.
right.
So yes, 9 to 9 is happening. I know a lot of people have been messaging already this past week in terms of leaders wanting to plan. It's happening, y'all. So stay tuned for some more information in the New Year's with that. 9 to 9 2022, February 26th. And also for those of us who miss youth camp, I want to tell you guys that we have confirmed that we have booked a campsite for a long weekend, the May long weekend. So expect some more details on that. Lord willing, we won't have any Omarion variants, whatever you guys want to call them, in the way.
That's right.
Listen, there's a few questions here. Again, I'm trying to be very sensitive to time. I see here that, one was asked, like, where does obedience play into this conversation? I think this is a fantastic question, especially in Romans, as it talks to us about following our authorities and following what our, leaders say as they've been placed there by God. And I personally, I do see this as one of my factors of respecting my position in society and obeying what I consider are people who know more about this than me. That's my take on it. Like, I truly feel that I also get into conversations with people who have no idea what they're talking about, and they're only being led by fear in both spectrums. And so that's my take on it. Let's make this nice and short, guys. Answer, go ahead.
Do your research. Do your research in terms of obedience. You have to be obedient to God rather than to man, rather than to men. Now, what the men are telling us is not something that is sinful. But if you feel convicted by God that you shouldn't get this vaccine, then it's not mandatory yet. It's not the law. So I wouldn't say go get it if you don't feel convicted, and then if you don't get it, you're in disobedience. You're in disobedience if you don't get it and then you don't follow prayer. For example, we're all wearing masks, right? Some people have said that they go to Walmart and they don't wear a mask or whatever. I've been to places in Toronto where they kick people out because they don't have a mask on. So we're all wearing masks. I think the vaccine is because people say, well, this thing is going into my body, but the mask might actually be more dangerous than this than the vaccine. But
Got it.
we're
Yeah,
still
yeah,
wearing it.
yeah.
So
Any
you gotta
comments?
go with that.
Any comments on obedience, Marcelo Maristed?
I think he hit the nail on the head. Obedience to God first and foremost.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I agreed. I think obedience to God is key here, and like Abraham said, I think it's a prayerful decision. I think if God is leading you down that path, just make sure that you're bringing it towards God, right? Whatever you do, whether you drink or eat, whatever it is that you're doing, we should be bringing everything towards the Lord.
Yeah.
And something like this, I think, is
Yeah.
important to bring.
Well, your brother says fear and threats should never be the motivation to make decisions. So where do we stand as Christians? Absolutely. I think I've already mentioned it. There's a lot of fear, I want to say, in both sides. And I think that the number one thing that will overcome fear is prayer. It is reading your
That's right.
scripture. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that say get vaxxed, that say don't get vaxxed, that are far from the truth, that are far from their daily devotionals, that are far from prayer. I'm not saying go and live a religious life and you'll have all the wisdom in the world. I'm saying go and have a relationship with Jesus, right? Go and get to know who He is in your life and live that out, and that will, I tell you, bring you peace in your decisions. That's my take on that. Any other take?
I think, for example, looking at Apostle Paul, when he in the Book of Acts, when he claimed to his Roman citizenship, I think that he was saying, "Hey, listen, no, you can't do this because I'm a Roman citizen. I have certain rights and certain things that need to be upheld in the court of law here." So, I think to a degree, when we're talking about fear tactics, I think we have an obligation as citizens, as Christians, to make sure that the things that are coming down the pipeline are just. And I think that there's a peaceful way. I don't think we ever say to resort to violence. I think
Yeah.
that there's a peaceful way to resort to these things. For example, Austria and Germany, they're talking about mandatory vaccinations for all citizens. I'm gonna leave it
Yeah.
there. I think that is a complete
Yeah,
overreach,
that's
and I
right.
think that the people are, if something like that were to happen here, I think that it would be our duty as citizens, as Christians, to stand up not just for our own rights, but for those that can't get the vaccine for whatever reason.
Yeah. Um, anything else to add there?
No, I think we covered everything in terms of vaccines and a lot of positions. I think somebody named Gloria Miller, I guess, is joining us for the first time.
Yeah,
Is
I'm gonna be
commenting.
posting that one here right after
That's
this
a
one.
lot. That's a lot of
Um,
that's a lot of data to
Yeah, yeah,
analyze.
but no, there is one that I definitely want to show up there. I mean, Diego says here, how come they don't do this with lung cancer produced from smoking in terms
Yeah, we
of
talked about that.
mandating?
It's the money thing.
How come they don't invest as much to stop that? You see, this is one of the problems that this is a political game. Absolutely, we are involved in a political game, but at the base, behind all this, we also know that COVID is real. Like just
Right,
as much
and
as any
then
of the,
like smoking is a choice. You
yeah.
can get COVID without choosing to get COVID.
Yeah. And so and what you just said there, Abraham, I think that's what they use as bases to push
Right.
their agenda to say, well,
Yep.
hey, smoking is something that you choose. You can go do that at your house and not impact anybody else. But versus COVID is this thing that,
Right.
if you don't wear a mask, you're going to go and share it with somebody else. And so I really do not like at all the way this is presented. And I would agree with anybody that says, why aren't there enough, propaganda to say the natural ways, the natural remedies? Why aren't there enough programs out there to get us more fit and more willing to attack
Yeah.
these sicknesses? So I absolutely agree with that. But it still isn't enough for me to disagree that there are vaccines out there, not even related to COVID, that do help us in our immunity to
Yeah,
fight
of
off
course.
whatever sicknesses. Marcelo might have said anything to add there?
I'm not sure if I'm muted anymore. Am I?
No,
You're back.
we can hear
Okay,
you.
okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I said, do you have anything to add? No.
Listen,
No.
all knowledge comes from God, guys, and scientific knowledge comes from God. It doesn't come from devil. It's not made up. Scientific knowledge comes from God. Medicine, the knowledge in medicine, comes from God. Christ has said it himself. He says, "The sick don't need a doctor." Right? So
Yeah.
the healed don't need a doctor, but the sick. So the knowledge in medicine come from God, and you have to trust and you have to pray. Like somebody said, there's a preacher in the Dominican that says, if you get in an accident, you're in the ambulance. He says that boy himself. He says, if I get in an accident, you're taking me to the hospital in the ambulance. Pray so the ambulance doesn't get in another accident. Pray so when the doctor's operating in me, God uses him. Pray so that they give me the right medication. Pray so that the medication does what it's supposed to do. But take the medication now. now the vaccine has not been tested. At some point, I think they'll get to a point where they have enough research to say this vaccine is, good enough for people,
Yeah.
just like we
Yeah.
are right now with the measles and the mumps and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But we're not there
So
yet.
so here, Gloria mentions here part of some of the quotes that she's mentioned, and we can kind of respond to this one. I'll respond. The entire vaccine program is based on massive fraud. Dr. Russell L. Blaylock, MD, neurosurgeon, editorial staff of Journal American Physicians and Surgeons. I'm not here to discredit this Blaylock dude,
Is that
but
the COVID vaccine or every vaccine?
let's say it's the COVID vaccine. I just want us to at least open our eyes that I could also get a quote just like this that
From
says the
somebody with the
opposite
same credentials.
with the same credentials exactly. And so this is part of that love that we've been talking about. That man, we have to at least be willing. Like I know I am vaxxed. I have 2 shots. I have to be willing to ask myself the question: is it okay to keep vaccinating myself? Is it okay to,
Yeah.
should I be?
You have to be
I
convicted of it.
expect, I'll be honest, guys, I expect for anybody who's not vaccinated to also, in their daily, relationship with
You
Jesus,
have
to
to.
bring that up and say, hey, God, you know what? Do I have to change my stance on this?
Right.
Has it cleared up now? It's been now longer than a year. Am I able now to take maybe a stronger step towards maybe getting vaccinated? I feel that that is something that we should all be considering, at least in bringing that up to God. That's my point.
I mean, somebody, Crystal put up, why does God give peace about the vaccine to some and a sense of uneasiness to others? Because God knows exactly what your cells are going to do with it, right? God knows exactly every cell in your body. He knows. So God may know someone who, if they get the vaccine, will get really sick. And God knows if they're putting saline in some and real vaccine in the other. And God knows if you get the real thing or if you get the saline. Like God knows what I got. He knows when I got it. He knew from before. He know how that's going to impact me in the future and all that other stuff. So for some people, God may say this, for you, right? You can take it, no problem. And others you may say, listen, don't take it right now. That's an individual thing that God is going to work with you. Now we have to be careful at what we're listening to when we're saying God spoke to me. Right, we have to be very careful
Yeah.
because it could just
Yeah.
be the information that you've
Yeah.
consumed
For
when you're
sure.
saying
For
God
sure.
spoke to me. You
For
have to
sure.
be somebody who's never heard the voice of God before. Somebody who's hadn't had a communion with God. They come saying, "Now, well, God spoke to me." How do you know? You've never heard the voice of God before. You got to be sure that this is God talking to you. Like your relationship with God would determine how to. You relationship with God will determine what you do with this vaccine or not.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's that's the thing.
Hey, should you be vaxxed to be able to go to a house of worship?
I don't think so. I don't agree with
Look,
that.
I don't. I think all of us are gonna say no,
No.
Absolutely
but
not.
I would question. What's your take on the vax? That's gonna be my only little asterisk because again, if you're out here saying that the vax is meant to prevent you from getting COVID, that's not it. That's not what it is about. Now, if you are disagreeing with the vaccine being something that helps you more than natural immunity, like if you're disagreeing with that and you have your takes on that, of course, like it just does not make sense. It does not make sense at all
Right.
to be vaxxed to be able to go to the house of worship.
No.
Now, I would ask this: are there certain things that we uphold at the church, at any church, that we should quote unquote be doing as you kind of walk in? Like, for example, are we okay with somebody coming into the church constantly butt naked? Are we okay with that? Now, we'll most likely want to say, hey, listen, let's put them to the side. Let's talk to them.
Yeah.
Let's give them some clothes. Now, again, I'm looking at an extreme here, and I don't think that we are close to that extreme. And that is why I'm not a big fan of the argument that says, hey, but we're getting close to that. I'm not a big fan to that because I feel like we're not. So, but
Yeah,
I know that
think
there's some people that feel
the
otherwise.
middle ground is the mask mandate. So, for example, at the church, churches are required for you to have masks, just as any other indoor place, right?
Yeah,
They're
there you
required
go.
to have masks, right?
So I've been to a church where you don't register, you don't do any of that.
right, but they're
regular
in
church.
violation of the law of whatever,
It's
unless
not
that's
a
not a
law.
law.
It's not
Unless
a law.
that's not a law. Unless they're saying
A
this is not
mandate
a
is
law.
not a law. You got to remember that.
Well, they got bylaws. They got bylaws in the city of Toronto that people indoors have to wear masks. Like they have bylaws. Maybe that place doesn't have a bylaw, but the city of Toronto has a bylaw. I know the region of Peel has a bylaw that indoor
Yeah.
places you have to wear a
And
mask.
you know what? Like, honestly, maybe their conviction, I get it. They have that sense of not wanting to go through that. We've all seen some stories of certain
Yeah.
churches being closed down and going through that. Um, and I would be more on the side of letting God do what he wants to do with those specific individuals than necessarily changing my whole vision or mission that God has given me to go and act like that person's doing. In other sense, if that's
Yeah.
not the battle that like maybe God's calling me to fight, then
Fair.
I'm not necessarily going to get into that because it's most likely that maybe the battles I'm fighting, maybe that person isn't fighting. And so we always got to kind of see the body as this complete, image which has different parts that do different things. Any last take
I
on
mean,
this?
in terms of that, again, if the law of the land is not against the Bible, you have to follow the law of the land. Now, if
Yeah.
they say you can't go to a place of worship unless you're vaccinated, that is
That is different.
that's borderline sinful. So
But
that's
they've started that. You know that,
but
right?
maybe I haven't heard anything about
Yeah,
it,
in
but maybe they
BC
have.
and New
So
Brunswick.
if some provinces have started already, it's going to come to other
Of
provinces. We have
course
to
it
find out
is.
what they're going to do. Now, what if they say, well, you got to have a vaccinated and unvaccinated section? Does that make it any different? So we have
Right.
to, that would be something to talk about. Like, are you discriminated because some people are vaccinated, other people are not? You have sections for
100%. And the
vaccinated
Bible
and
talks about
unvaccinated.
that. You can't
So,
Yeah,
discriminate.
that's a huge thing. I think that I think we all draw the line somewhere, and I think for a
we
lot of
all
us,
draw the
I
line
think we
somewhere.
draw. I think that's at least a point. I don't know if we can all agree on this, but at least that's something where, as Christians, we should draw the line and say, you might be able to do the mandates with the mask and social distancing, all that stuff, but when then you start telling people that they're not allowed to go into a house of worship because of their vaccination status, I think that's a time. I think, in my opinion, I think that would be the time for the church to say, you know what, we're going to put our foot down and say,
Yeah, we're
and not
not
just
going to
our
do
church,
this.
we all go to different. I mean, some of us go to different churches, but I say the church, as in the Canadian church or the church, needs to say, enough is enough. I think that. Yeah, that's a huge thing, and
That's going to be a huge step.
yeah, I hope it doesn't happen, but it's like,
It's coming.
If it happened on BC and New Brunswick,
It's
we have
yeah,
to
coming.
look at
So
what is the information
yeah, I'm
around
gonna I'm
that.
gonna
But
take a look at two more questions here because we are way past time here.
it's a 2 hour show.
Um,
Then ain't nobody told you guys.
yeah,
is
great
uh, is
topic.
there an example situation where preventing someone from partaking in the gathering of believers is warranted? And I think the question also added biblical or otherwise. Okay, and I don't think that you're going to find that example, but you're also man, we're so far from also the biblical image of coming together as a church in these smaller groups. And to be honest, that's why I've kind of seen the lockdowns and I've seen this whole pandemic, and I think we all will agree is that God is in control at the end of the day. Right? We can't not say that. Like we're not going to say that God isn't the one allowing these things. Whether he wants it to happen, that's something else. But he's absolutely
Yeah,
allowing it
God is in
because
control of everything.
because there's a purpose to things that we don't see it. And if I had to try to, understand what God is doing, I'll be honest, as a leader, as a youth leader, man, I've seen God shake people up. Like I've seen the church being shaken, and I see people who genuinely love Jesus continue in the faith, and those who genuinely don't get lost in this whole I'm not going to be able to go to church anymore, and they you know what, I'm going to be back, and they're no longer serving God, they're no longer seeking him, and so I see kind of like that maybe return to what we should be doing happening. But just to answer the question, no, you're not going to find that, but you're also going to find many differences from what you see biblically till today, even with the order of things. Anybody going to say anything else here?
Well, listen, this, this doctrinally, you may say, well, you're not going to find that in the church, but let me remind everybody that the early church, the services were only for Christians. Only the saints met. There were no unchristian people in the early church. Look it up in the Bible. Only the saints. It was the reunion of the saints. God added to the church. So when they met for prayer and breaking of the bread, it was only the saints. There were no unchristian people there.
Yeah.
So and that the Neo Testamental church has changed in years that have passed, and now we have church on Sundays. Everybody comes, not a problem. That's not the same as not being vaccinated. They had their reasons for doing that. That's not the same. I believe that at the point where they say you have to be vaccinated, before
Yeah,
you go to
yeah.
church to worship, we're gonna have to take a stand to some degree. Somebody mentioned leprosy. Leprosy means that somebody's already sick. So if somebody has COVID and they're coming to church saying, "I have COVID, pray for me," that's a problem because it's a contagious disease, right? That's a problem. There's tons of biblical example of that. But if they don't have anything and they're just not vaccinated, they should be able to come to church and worship with us. Because leading worship, sometimes I almost tell people just take off the mask and let's just worship. But you really can't do that because of the bylaw. But
Yeah,
um,
I mean, I'll say
you
with
know,
that, like, what are your intentions as well? Like, are you going
what
for healing?
exactly?
Like, are you going for, or are you just going because you just want to go against the law? Yo estoy enfermo, I'm sick, and I'm still gonna go to church, and knowing that
Right.
you're putting to risk, la hermanita ahí en la iglesia or
Now,
something
if you're
like that.
going
Like,
through
come on,
COVID,
like that's
if you
that's
have
different.
COVID,
That's different.
you should let. If you have COVID, that's just any contagious disease. If you have COVID, you
COVID or
should
not,
not.
COVID or
Yeah,
not, like
COVID or
something that
not.
you feel that you know is
Yeah,
contagious with
yeah,
somebody else,
Right.
there's
you should
also that
not.
loving
But
factor there.
I would say to that, that's something that we've done always. Like if you have a cold, you stay
Yeah,
home, and
exactly.
if
You
you're
Yeah.
stay
not
home.
feeling
We've
well, you
always
don't
done
get
that.
in
Yeah,
contact with
That's
people.
right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we're
That
making
I,
Again, that's what I'm saying. Like you won't necessarily find examples. I think of that
right,
biblically. I think it's more of in the order of things, in the way that we love each other. We see
right,
those examples.
I
Um,
will say this: people who refuse to go to church because of COVID, they go everywhere else. They go everywhere
that
else.
is true.
So you refuse to go to
I have come
church.
into contact with
If
people who are
you
saying, "Oh,
refuse,
I want
yeah.
to go to church because of
I
that."
wa-
But then, we see them at the movies, and
at
it's
the
just
at
like,
the movies. I see them at the mall. You see them at the restaurants. They go
yeah,
everywhere else,
yeah.
but they don't go to church because of COVID.
So
That's
what
hilarious.
last one here. The government
Last one.
itself is dividing the church. Absolutely not. We cannot say this. You know why? Because the head of the church is Jesus Christ,
That's
and
right.
Jesus Christ is victorious in all ways. And I think what we can see is that there's genuine people and there's non-genuine people in the faith, which has always been the case. And so, if your driving factor to not take the vax or to be worried about COVID is that the church is being divided or that the enemy is winning, I wouldn't say that's the best approach. I would say, are there lives out there that are being confused and tricked that we can maybe potentially,
Yeah.
help? Absolutely. But remember, that the number one thing that we ought to be preaching here is salvation of our sins. If it's related to COVID in some sort of way, go for it. But just know that the church itself, what we're here to proclaim is the good news of Jesus Christ, that he came to die on a cross for our sins, and through that,
That's right.
we have salvation. And so, is the church being divided? Is the government divided? Don't give too much strength to the government
no,
for that.
No,
Absolutely
I mean
not. God is
they
always on top. Is it going
right.
to cause disturbance amongst the people
they will.
in general?
They will.
Absolutely. But the church itself, la verdadera iglesia, jamás.
But
I
the
would say it
devil,
can be divided because
yeah,
the powers of hell will not prevail against the church,
that's
right?
right. That's right.
So
That's
so the
that's
devil is trying, and I mean,
the
just like
devil
there
will
are
always
Yeah.
try. The
right,
devil will
and
always try.
there's people in the
And
government that are believers. There are worshiper believers that believe in Jesus, but also there are, I'm sure there. I don't want to get into that, but like there's different agents and different sides in this thing, right? But it's definitely to say
the
that the
gates of hell
government.
shall not
It's more of
prevail.
like like I said in the beginning, like a spiritual battle,
Yeah.
and that's been persisting
That's right.
since even before Jesus came on this earth.
Awesome. Hey,
God is
guys.
good, guys.
Wow. Thank you so much for going super longer than anticipated. But thank you. And everybody who's been just dropping comments, truly appreciate it. I think this was awesome. Again, I really hope that this is just a place where we can just have a conversation. Is there risk for this video being taken down? Maybe, that's just how
We're not
the
going to take
rights
it
in
down. What do you say?
government works. But who cares about that,
Apart
guys?
from Maria still mentioning that organization, we ain't seen nothing funny.
But hey, always we like to wrap up the show. If you don't know of Jesus, like this is really it. Ultimately, that's what we want to talk to you about. If you want to message us afterwards and really know what we're about, what Maricer, Marcelo, myself, Abraham are about, is that it's all about having a relationship with Jesus and Him guiding you through your life in ways that you didn't expect, in loving, gracious, miraculous ways. And so. God bless you
Jesus
guys.
loves you, vaxxed or unvaxxed, and we love you, vaxxed or unvaxxed.
And hey, you
I
know
mean,
what? As a motivating factor, man, if you're watching this, try to support your church as well. Show
that's
up,
right. Show up
talk
to
to
your
your
local
leaders,
church.
work with them, because this is also a very interesting time for everybody. And I think we have to come together. We have to come
That's
together,
right.
unity, and try to find ways to do that because it's a very interesting time. All right,
Amen.
y'all. Much love.
Thank you.
God
Thank you. Love you
bless.
guys. God bless
Happy New
you.
Year, Merry Christmas, everybody
Merry
out there
Merry
Christmas.
watching.
Christmas, guys.
Don't eat too
Later,
much,
y'all.
don't drink too much.
God bless.